After growing up in Western Pennsylvania's cradle of quarterbacks, my guest tonight would transcend his sport like nobody ever has, with a combination of style, charm, and unmatched toughness. Joseph William Namath became a national champion with the Alabama Crimson Tide, the first pro quarterback to pass for 4,000 yards in a season, and a Super Bowl champion. But before he earned the nickname Broadway Joe, did you know he was known for his slam dunks as a high school basketball player, was offered $50,000 to become a member of the Chicago Cubs, and ruled out playing for Notre Dame because it was an all-boys school. Tonight, we'll learn what makes this undeniable icon who he is. A man who once said, when you have confidence, you can have a lot of fun. And when you have fun, you can do amazing things. Please welcome Pro Football Hall of Famer, Joe Namath.
Thank you.
Buddy.
Thank you.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
In duration, that is the longest standing ovation we've had with somebody walking out here. So you're already setting records out here, Joe.
Glad to be here. Thank you for coming, folks. And Joe, thanks for having me.
I think this show backstage is a buzz because I don't think we could have any guest that defines his era more than you defined playing in the NFL in the 60s and being a professional athlete in this great city of New York. But when you look back, do you sometimes think, my God, man, I broke through some barriers that nobody had ever even thought about breaking through before? Do you have perspective on it now?
I have a perspective on it, sure, but I was so naive and didn't know really what I was going through at the time other than being there and experiencing it. We live and learn, and I was lucky to be around some folks that taught me respect for others, and everything to me starts at home to this day, and I've learned that over the years. The animal that we are, you know, we're influenced by our environment, by our people early on.
It starts back in the early 40s, 1943, in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, the youngest of four boys. Can you describe to this audience what life was like in the United States, let alone in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, back in the early 40s?
I had three older brothers, folks, 6, 9, and 12 years older than me. And until I was 15, I thought my name was Shut Up. Well, my parents, you know, they wanted a daughter. And so actually, and I can't blame them, of course, with these four boys that they had. When I was going on 4 years old, we adopted my sister Rita. And she was 6 years older than me, too. So she was kind of assigned to look after me, and I got to hang out with Rita and her girlfriends when I was growing up, you know, 5
Wait,
girls.
so we're charging Rita with the start of Broadway Joe back in the day, hanging out with Rita and all of her girlfriends.
Yeah, she taught me quite a bit, and she was a good athlete, too. Rita was terrific.
I have to assume your dad, John, was a good athlete, right? I mean, he immigrated from Hungary, came in 1920. His father really wouldn't let him play sports as a young man because he thought that was a waste of time, right?
Joe, was work, work, work. First generation, they came over, it was work. I never saw my father throw a ball of any kind.
Is it accurate, I read, where when you were 8, you went home and told your mom and dad that you were nervous to play in Little League? And your dad said, well, then go back and take the uniform back. He kind of taught you the confidence and started this great well of confidence that we would later really associate with the name Joe Namath.
I think my dad was challenging me, if you weren't strong enough, you don't belong there, you know? You got to learn in his roundabout way. Take that back then, you know? You want to give up? You want to, okay, go ahead, you go take it back. And just the way he goes about saying some of those things, you knew it wasn't the thing to do. You know, you
Right.
had to own up. You had to stay strong. You had to do some things that you may not feel like doing, and to get out of the steel mill, so to speak. We couldn't pay your way to college, so you had to earn a scholarship somehow. An athletic scholarship, boy, if you could do that, that was big time. That was a way of not necessarily going into the steel mills. My dad walked me into the steel mill when I was about 11. It terrified me at a young age, and I was determined not to go into the steel mill. I wanted to join the Air Force. That was my brother John. My oldest brother was a military man for a career, and I always dreamt of soaring and flying around, you know. So that's what I was going to do had I not developed as an athlete.
Your mom, Rose, she worked part-time as a maid. She did whatever she could, especially as the years went on, to provide you with whatever you needed to succeed and maybe get out of life as a future steel mill worker.
You know, Joe, only living life longer and longer did I come to realize the importance of an influence that my mother was on me as well. Not only would she go to work daily and still have breakfast for the boys, it wasn't a big breakfast, but to go to school and everything, but when she'd come home, many times, man, she's on her hands and knees washing the floor in the house, keeping the kitchen, keeping the pantry right.
A lot of guests have sat in that seat and they've said, you know, we didn't have much, but back then we didn't really know we didn't have much. You know, that was just kind of life. And you grew up in a neighborhood that was mainly African American. Is that accurate?
Sure, yes. It was, of course, it was home. It was the way it was. We didn't know anything different. Very often, I'd be the only white boy on the team when we went up to play the projects. You know, we had another cat that was pretty good, Richie Rachel, a Polish kid across the street, but his mother didn't let him get away from home too far, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it was a way of life that was very normal. I mean, we just didn't think in any other terms than the normalcy of being friends.
What is it about the water in Western Pennsylvania when you think about the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, whether it was back in your day, a guy you idolized, Johnny Unitas, George Blanda, obviously later Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, you. I mean, it's kind of crazy how that became the cradle of quarterbacks for the NFL.
Yes, and boy, we joke about the water and the ethnicity, the guys, the hard workers and all that, but I really believe the desire may have been there, but we needed the teachers. We needed the teachers. We needed the coaches. We needed the leaders, your mom, dad, all right? You need the leaders to influence you, people that you will lend an ear to. If an athlete is showing some promise, some desire that they want to excel and they're trying to, good coaches, good family people, you know, they'll take the time to try and explain to them how to go about things.
The first year of your high school football career, if you want to call it that, you didn't play much. Your second year, though, this new coach comes in, Larry Bruno. And is it fair to say that he made Joe Namath his pet project for the year?
He took me and taught me specifically how to go about things. I mean, you know, when a coach says, okay, you go from here over there and do this, he showed me each and every single step, how to get from point A to point B, taking the most direct route with your body, with your step. And if you're gifted enough to have quickness, I mean, you're getting from here to there now. You know, he showed me that stuff. I wasn't a very good student in elementary school or start going on. I was always afraid to say why. I wouldn't ask a question. I don't know whether it came from fear from somewhere, being embarrassed. It wasn't until I started to ask why, till I got brave enough to start asking why, did I start getting answers explained to me. And when it comes to coaching and all, not asking a coach why and talking about Larry Bruno, showing me things, that's how I started to learn.
All right, so I want to throw a couple things at you that stood out to me. You were dunking the basketball in high school. At one point, you walked off your high school team because the coach benched you. You weren't doing the typical kind of Hoosiers type of basketball, setting a pick and, you know, fundamentally sound. Let's say you were wearing sunglasses in the team picture when you were a young boy and the photographer said, "Hey, kid, take those sunglasses off." And you're like, "No."
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
So there was something there where you were kind of marching to the beat of your own drum.
You know, I saw the Pirates tap their hat and cheaters come down. It's to protect your eyes or the sun.
It looked like a sunny day, to be fair,
yes.
and why?
And it was pretty cool, too. I mean, I remember the Cincinnati Kid and George C. Scott wearing those cheaters with Paul Newman shooting pool, you know. And
right.
I didn't particularly like
style,
people
man. That's part of style. Whether you were a kid, you were like, hey, I'm not taking off these sunglasses. This is me, Joe Namath. This is my style.
I thought life was kind of a matter of style, an individual kind of approach, an individual approach after you get what you infer from your teachers, the experiences and all. It's a matter of style.
So at some point you get offered money to go play baseball from the St. Louis Cardinals, $15,000?
Actually, the Cubs was $50,000.
Cubs eventually $50,000.
Yeah, the Cardinals, the Cubs, the Orioles as well. I wanted to play baseball. I had an opportunity to sign for that $50,000, which may not sound like a lot of money now, but when your dad's making $5 a year and your mother's working every day of the week and you got a bonus offer from a team to sign.
Wow.
I loved baseball, man. I caught everything like Roberto Clemente. I threw like, I got in the batter's box, bobbing my head like Roberto Clemente. I just loved baseball.
Why did you turn that money down and that, in essence, that sport down then?
I didn't have a choice. It was at a time you did what your mother wanted you to do. You did what your parents wanted you to do. We had a vote at the house. My dad wasn't there because Mom and Dad had split up, and Bob asked Mom, "What do you want Joey to do?" So, "I want Joey to go to college." And Bob just hit the table with his fist. "That's it. You go to college."
So you didn't get a vote.
I didn't get a vote, that's right. That was it, boy.
You visited colleges after this great senior year, and you went to Notre Dame.
You know, my brother Bob went with me, and as Coach DeVore was walking my brother Bob and I across campus to go see the head coach, it was cold. You know, it was like December and all, and it was pretty cold. And we're walking across campus, and Coach DeVore is telling us all the great things about Notre Dame, and the list goes on, folks, and it's a great university and all, man. But I'm looking around, and I didn't see a girl. Are there any girls here? And Coach DeVore said, "Oh, yeah, Joe, beautiful, wonderful girls here." I said, well, I don't see any. He said, "Oh, they're over across the lake there, over at St. Mary's." Across the lake.
Check out.
That was part of the first negative vibe I got about Notre Dame of being there. And Coach Koharic was a terrific coach, I understand. I didn't play for him, but the communication between the two of us in that meeting wasn't good.
But you could read just the body language, the focus or the lack thereof. You thought, okay, Notre Dame, no.
Right, no.
Maryland, yes. You really wanted Maryland, but didn't get in because of low test scores.
Yes, so I fell in love with Maryland. I fell in love with the opportunity that Coach Nugent presented there. When the college boards came back, I missed it by 4 or 5 points, and the second time I missed it again by short points. And Coach Nugent ended up calling Coach Bryant. This is the story that I got. Coach Nugent at Maryland called Coach Bryant at Alabama and said, "Namath is still out there."
The great Bear Bryant at Alabama. You talk about falling into the, rose bush here with this unbelievable program.
You know, I was semi-shocked even getting there, Joe. First of all, folks, when I got home from school, there was a guy sitting in the living room talking to my mother. His name was Howard Schnellenberger, who happened to be the great football coach he turned out to be. Yes, and Howard and my mother talked before I knew what was happening, and she said, Coach Schnellenberger, he introduced himself. My mother, while he's saying hello, Joe, and all, goes upstairs, comes back down with a suitcase that big. You could put it underneath the seat of any airplane now. She gave me a $5 bill and said, take him. Honey, you're going to college here. You're going to Alabama. And that was it.
Oh,
I didn't visit the campus prior to anything. I didn't know Alabama football. I had watched them play Penn State in the Liberty Bowl the year before, and I liked Alabama because they had dark headgears. I liked their look.
Back to style.
I didn't know anything about Coach Bryant at the time. That's how lucky I was. I didn't know anything about one of the greatest teachers that ever walked the earth.
So you show up, and not long after that, you end up in Coach Bryant's tower.
Folks, I'm going to tell you, this is a fact. I understood one word. One word that he said to me, the 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, I was up in that tower with him, and I didn't know what that word meant. He'd mumble something, he'd say, oh, he's stud. He's stud. Kept saying stud, S-T-U, stud. You know, like a thoroughbred horse goes to stud, and, he gonna be stood. And I did not know what he was talking about. And that's when I started to find out that I was in a different part of the world.
I mean, forget football. I mean, this is culture shock for you when you got to Alabama. Your best friends were African-American, that you were part of that community, and now you get down there and you're talking about the Deep South, and that wasn't something that, I mean, this is the 1960s we're talking about, where, this was a new world to you, right?
It didn't cross my mind that segregation was happening. And whenever I was taken to the Greyhound bus station to take the bus back out of town, that's the first time I saw above the water fountains and above the restrooms, white and colored. I didn't know.
You had pictures in your room of you and your African-American friends, and that was life back home. And there were teammates that called you the N-word.
Yeah, they didn't last long. Coach Bryant figured out who was, giving their best and who was right. And anyway, sometimes the rats would jump ship. They don't want to, but they need to. And I figured I was confused because these guys would be going to church, would be praying, would be treating people with respect, treating everybody the way Coach Bryant did himself. We'd be trying to follow in Coach Bryant's footsteps as much as we could to be the best we could be. And how could they feel this way? What was going on here? And it wasn't just Tuscaloosa. It was the entire Southeastern Conference. Now, that was something that I was shocked over, too. Being from Western PA, where everything was normal, I thought, going to somewhere where not one of the universities was integrated.
Did it make you want to leave the university?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's quitting. You see, quitting was scarier.
Where are you on the depth chart your sophomore year?
Well, I was fortunate. Again, I was a pretty good athlete, and we had a good team, and I won the starting quarterback job my freshman spring.
Freshmen couldn't play on the varsity.
We played 3 games our freshman year. We had 5 quarterbacks, and Coach Bryant saw something in me to afford me the chance to start as a sophomore. And folks, one of the best lessons I would tell you guys, before my very first game as a sophomore, we're opening up against Georgia. And Coach Bryant, there's 5 of us. I'm the only sophomore. Coach Bryant says, "Joe, you got a plan?" I said, "Yes, sir, I think so." "You think so? Son, it's time you know the hay is in the barn." Now, I didn't know what that meant about the hay in the barn, but I tell you what, from that moment on, I always knew the plan. I never said, "I think so" again. When my coach asked me, "Do you know?" I made sure I knew.
Can you still hear Bear's voice in your head?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, not a day goes by that I don't think of Coach Bryant somehow. Something comes up. Maybe a day goes by or so, but I think of my teammates, I think of coaches, I think of things that happened in sports that are applicable to everyday life.
Your sophomore year, your team goes 10-1, and you are going to play Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. This isn't a national championship game, but this is the biggest game of your life.
Yeah, we go to the Orange Bowl in Miami to play the Oklahoma Sooners, Bud Wilkinson's last game. Coach Wilkinson was going into the political arena after he retired, so President Kennedy came to the game. Just before the game, Coach Bryant said, "President Kennedy sitting over there on the Oklahoma side." Oh, wow. Oh, man. He got us a little more fired up by that.
You see the play fakes, you see the option. I mean, you could do everything. There was a gear there that you didn't see very often.
Well, it's quick. That was another thing about growing up the lower end of town. You damn sure better have been able to run fast.
After this, you're the toast of the town. Where's the AFL or the NFL on your to-do list? Is it realistic at this point that you're going to end up at the next level?
Wasn't even really thinking about professional football when I was a sophomore or whatever. At least I don't recall thinking about it, but I do remember watching the AFL. And in watching the AFL, they could play. Yeah, I was watching guys throw the ball, run the ball. Keith Lincoln down there, Lance Allworth, you know, guys with San Diego.
Was it a more fun style of football?
It was an open game. It seemed more open than the NFL played, but I'd been watching the NFL with my dad every Sunday, you know, since we could watch television.
Week 4 of your senior season, your knee gives out. And it's not really something that they can diagnose like they can today. So nobody really knew the severity of this injury, but how bad was it?
It was bad. That was the most excruciating fast pain I had ever felt at the time. And we taped it up and tried to make it work.
That's how it was back then, right?
Yeah,
Tape it up.
Yeah.
God.
We taped it up, and I was able to play some on and off, but kept going out.
But at this point, you guys have been perfect in the regular season. You've already been declared national champions, so it's a different system than we're used to today.
Yeah.
So you're going into this bowl game, and you're hurt. Why play in that game?
I didn't think I was going to play at all. In fact, when we're getting lined up for the Star-Spangled Banner on the sidelines, I'm standing here, Coach Bryant standing here, our trainer Jim Goostree standing there, and we're waiting for the music to start, and Coach Bryant doesn't even look at Coach Goostree. He said, "Jim, can he play?" I heard that, and I looked over at Coach Goostree, and Coach Goostree looked at me, and he said, "I think so, Coach." And that was the first inkling that I had no idea that I was even going to get an opportunity to play that night.
You entered the game, your team was down 14-0. Let's take a look.
Joe Namath is quarterback for Alabama, and despite a leg injury, he completes a record number of passes for Orange Bowl play. One follows another, and this one, Dwayne Trimble, chalks up the first Alabama score. Joe Namath The man with the solid gold arm hits Ray Perkins with a 20-yard bullet pass, and Alabama pulls closer. Texas makes a stand that is their Alamo. Fourth down, the ball is on the half-yard line, and Namath tries to carry it over himself. He is stopped, and Texas upsets the mighty Alabama team with a last-ditch defense that could become a football classic.
Man, you entered the game. Your team was down 14-0. You end up the MVP of that game. But that last play, to me, even the first glance, it looks like you got over the goal line, but you were ruled to have been stopped short.
It was at a time that the quarterbacks called their plays and everything, because the best play in football to this day, to me, is where you have more than one choice. That's called a run-pass option. You know, if you got a quarterback like Rodgers, whatever, could run and, you know, throw the ball as well, you want to take that kind of thing. In the middle, we were also taught no one's going to stop us when we have a half a yard to get. You know, you sneak it. You sneak it. This is the way you're going to do. Your guys are going to get that. You're going to beat anybody in front of you. And that's was the philosophy there.
When you were drafted, there were two leagues where you could have ended up. There was the NFL and there was the AFL. You went 12th overall to St. Louis. Some thought you would in the NFL be the first pick overall, but instead you ended up with the Jets in the AFL. Why did you take the Jets in the AFL instead of the Cardinals in the NFL?
It came down to people. It came down to David A. Sonny Werblin, Leon Hess, the owners, and Weeb Eubank, the coach of the New York Jets at that time, who had already won a championship in the NFL with the quarterback and the team, the Baltimore Colts, and a quarterback named Johnny Unitas. Now, what young quarterback wouldn't want to play for a coach that already won a championship? It was because of the people.
When you got to the Jets, was there any feeling of inferiority, meaning from the league side, from the, you know, you're up against the NFL, there's, you know, competition for the dollar. Was there any inferiority complex with the league?
You know, they tried to make it feel that way, but as a player, as an athlete, there was anger in a sense because the comparison was always the NFL was better. But that was the justified comparison. The league had been around for a long time, and the AFL was still establishing itself. Even though when I got there, it was already 5 years old, the 6th season of the AFL. But we felt like we could play, and only when we got a chance to compete against the NFL could we prove it.
You signed a deal coming to the Jets with bonuses, multiple years. I mean, you're talking about roughly a $400,000 deal. And you've got teammates that are making 20 grand a year.
10, too. I mean,
okay,
yeah,
so there's a big disparity between.
Absolutely, and that was, again, Mr. Werblin, Mr. Hess. That was the ownership of the Jets, and Mr. Werblin mainly with the star system. He believed in trying to create a star system.
He was a showman. I mean, he was a TV guy. It's New York.
MCA.
Yeah, we need stars. Is there any resentment in your own locker room for the attention you were getting as a rookie AFL quarterback?
Well, there was an incident at training camp my rookie year when we had a player who was a professional wrestler in the offseason, a linebacker, that we were running a lap to loosen up before we started our calisthenics, and he had run up behind me and jumped on my back, and I fell to the ground. And by the time I was up and we got back over there, I told him that don't do that again. After practice, we had a meeting, a players-only meeting, and whenever our captain said, "Does anyone else have anything to say?" I really felt compelled to get that off my chest, and so I did stand up and address the team, and told them that they didn't have to like me. That's their choice. They did not have to like me, but I was there to play ball, and I was there to win a championship, and I was there to be a teammate, and if you couldn't get along with me, then you mess with me, come and do it now. we're out there working, and we need to work together. Don't bug me on the field in a negative way.
So your rookie year, teams up and down. You had knee surgery, and the prognosis was pretty grim. And the team doctor said to the powers that be, had I seen this knee before you signed your deal with the great Joe Namath, I would have said don't sign him. I mean, that's how serious the knee was.
Yes, and he told me that. Dr. Jim Nicholas told me that. He said, had I known what your knee was like before we opened it up, he said, we wouldn't even drafted you. And I said, boy, that would have been one hell of a mistake, huh? I promise you. Yeah. And he laughed about it, I laughed about it. But that was the truth.
I mean, he said, I'll give you 4 years on this leg.
Yes,
at
that's
best.
right. I asked what he thought. He said, I think you can play 4 years. I think you can play 4 years, and I started thanking God for that opportunity.
How important was winning a championship at that level to you?
First of all, it was an opportunity for a dream to come true because, again, as an athlete, I remember Little League, baseball, football, whatever, you're trying to win a championship. You're trying to win the championship. Your team, you're trying to be the best on any level, high school, college, and here we are, pro ball, trying to win the championship. Working our way up, getting better. 66 was a slump year, you know, something.
And you got hit and hit and hit. I mean, hitting Joe Namath became a game within a game in those AFL tilts you were in. I mean, it was a free-for-all back then on the quarterback.
Well, you live and learn. That's right. As Don Maynard said prior to the game, the MVP of the team was the most valuable physician. Whatever doctor could take care of the guys, and the name of the game was kill the quarterback. You know, and to this day, if you could knock the other team's ball handler out, if you could knock the #1 quarterback out, I promise you the guy that comes in for him's not as good. Your chances of winning the game go up because you're defenseless. You're just standing there, you're looking around, guys are coming at your legs, they're coming late, they're hitting you from behind, they're falling on top of you. You know, the hit's one thing, but hitting the ground's another thing. The head hits the ground and all. They had to do something, the league I'm talking about, to keep the quality of the game better. Because you knock out the #1 guys who are gifted that can throw a little bit better than the other guys or whatever, then you're not going to get the kind of performance that you'd like to get.
Can you put into words how much pain you're in back then?
You know, there's debilitating pain. There's some pain that you just can't handle. All of us can be brought to our knees with physical pain. I remember sometimes until the smelling salts takes place, whether you're on the sidelines or on the field. You just, it's sudden.
And you go back in.
You go back in because it was normal. It was normal way of going. You got your bell rung when it was a head
That's
thing.
what they said, right? There was a nice way of saying you had a brain injury.
Oh, yeah. That's fact.
That's what it is. Hey, we rung his bell. He got his bell rung. He's back in there. And now it's a real issue for the current and future state of the National Football League.
Yes, it is. It has become that, and in a sense, more importantly, for everyday people, football just happened to show it because the guys, Dave Durison, who took his own life, Junior Seau, Mike Webster went through some stuff. These guys kind of brought it to the forefront of recognition. There was no help. These guys didn't get any help of any kind of treatment to maybe alleviate or lessen the trauma that was brought to them, because that brain, you know, it runs the rest of the show, man.
1967, you throw for over 4,000 yards. That was unbelievable at the time. That just didn't happen.
Boy, this is nice, folks. I don't talk much about that. This was a 14-game schedule, too. It wasn't 16 games, and that number of yards by a team passing the ball through the air held up for many years after, until they changed the rules. actually. But Don Maynard, George Sire, Big Boy Pete Lamb, Snell, Boozer, Mathis, you know, our offensive line, we were throwing that rock downfield.
Now you're in your fourth year, and you know as a group, we're good enough to win.
We believed that. Yes, we did.
You guys go 11-3 in 1968. Now you're in the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. So now there's going to be, just for means of an education, an AFL Championship game, and the winner of that game will go on to play in what we know as the Super Bowl. So you have the Raiders, this hated Raiders team. You'd only beat them once.
They were good. Their ownership, Al Davis, bless him, man, he was sensational, Brooklyn guy, you know, that really had his style. And the Raiders had their style, even though that was the toughest game physically that I had ever played in.
You would not come out of that game. That's why he was known. You were known as one of the toughest guys in the history of pro football.
I was fortunate. Again, you know, some injuries can be debilitating, and some just hurt. And if you're fortunate enough to where it hurts, but you can play through it, you're fortunate, yeah.
How satisfying was that win to give to that organization and those fans to beat the Raiders in the AFL Championship?
For more than one reason, you know, Joe. Again, to have the opportunity to go to the championship game, man, and then to beat a team that has been traditionally a major foe because they were so good.
But nobody, yeah, go ahead, let them hear it. We have to set this up again, though, because you're the AFL champions. This is Super Bowl III, and you go into this game against an awesome Colts team, and they are favored in Super Bowl III by 17 points going in. I mean, the odds are hard to overcome going into this game. And you make a guarantee at a banquet that week of the Super Bowl that you're going to win.
Everyone and everyone, the media anyway, and the sports world, talking about how great the Colts were, and they did have a wonderful team. But if you can imagine being told yourself that you're not good enough, you're not going to win. If you're constantly being told for 10 days, a couple of weeks prior to the contest that you don't have a chance. Excuse me? We didn't get to the level we were in as competitors thinking we didn't ever have a chance or thinking that someone was going to whip us. You know, we knew that we were in for a battle, but I don't think any of us, having confidence in ourselves, having confidence in our team, should accept the fact or should accept being told you're not going to. Well, excuse me, why do we play the game? You know, we're going to find out.
We have this quote on the wall, which I love, and I think it fits in right here. When you have confidence, you can have a lot of fun. And when you have fun, you can do amazing things. You had the confidence, if the outside world didn't have it, that the Jets were good enough to win this Super Bowl.
Had the confidence, believed we could, but the other teams didn't have the kind of team we had.
The guarantee, is that a bigger deal? Is that less of a deal than we should make of it? It was at a banquet. Were you just tired of everybody saying Baltimore, 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 or was it a real thing, and did it factor into what happened that Sunday?
It factored into this way, telling everybody, at least in New York and in my home, we're going to win the game. You go ahead and count on that and do what you want. And, you know, Coach Eubank was upset about it. The next day at practice, before practice started, it was in the media down there. Edwin Pope of Miami is the one that wrote about it first of all. And Coach Eubank sent for me to come out in the middle of the field and talk to him. He's standing out there waiting for me like that. And I said, oh, man. Cleve Rush, our offensive coordinator, standing there with his head down. I get out there, and we just, Joseph, Joseph, those guys are so overconfident. They are so overconfident over there that now you've given them ammunition to get fired up. I said, Coach? He said, yes, you've given them ammunition. They're going to Coach Schiller's going to put up on the bulletin board all these clips about guaranteeing we're going to win this game. He said, you've given them ammunition to get fired up. And I was really a little bit embarrassed there, but I got my Gemini side of playfulness came in. I said, well, Coach, you know, it's your fault. He said, what? I said, well, it's your fault. I mean, you've been telling us we're going to win. I mean, if you hadn't convinced me we're going to win, I wouldn't have said that. I mean, you said we're good enough. You told us we're going to win. So, I mean, it's all your fault that I said that, Coach. Oh, get out of here, Joseph. Get out of here. Go. I ran off that field as fast as I could.
And here's what it looked like, Super Bowl III.
Namath's pass is complete for a first down to Mathis. First, 3rd and 4. Namath fires. It's complete. Right on a line.
Yeah.
When you won that game and you made good on this guarantee and you put a stamp out there that the AFL was legit, you know, the AFL was good enough to be better than the best from the NFL. Can you describe what that felt like to you because of all that went into that?
Yeah. My insides were like bubbling with joy, just bursting out with joy. I couldn't even say words, kind of. Settling in after the game in the locker room, you know, just winding down and thinking about how we accomplished it. We did it, you know. We accomplished something that, as a child, I keep saying this, folks, Little League on, you know, winning the championship. If you're fortunate to be a part of a group that can get together and do something like that, and there have been champions that have won several times, and bless them. Some of us only win once, and on each level maybe or whatever, but once is enough when it's so good. Yeah, man.
How proud were Mom and Dad?
My dad was in the locker room. My dad, you know, I was just so happy, you know, hugging him. He was tickled. He was. That's a word that I stumble around with, proud or pride. I'm not proud of our team. I'm thankful that we hung tough and we did it.
How good was life for the man sitting across from me right now when you win a Super Bowl for the New York Jets?
It was better than I ever thought about. I never dreamt. For real, I didn't dream about the opportunities that were coming. I just really felt good about being in New York, and wherever I went, there were smiles. I'd see smiles, and I'd be seeing smiles and people saying nice going, that in different towns I'm talking about, all over the country, because I know we showed that an underdog can step up and do it. And so don't quit, just keep trying, man.
I really feel like you're gonna fight me on this, but I just wanna get a sense of life as Joe Namath in the 60s. The llama skin rug and the bachelor pad of all bachelor pads, and in the 1960s, I mean, what an era to do it in New York, and this good-looking guy that, you know, had all this confidence and this bravado and backed it up with a championship. I mean, what was it like when you walked into a restaurant, you walked into a bar, you walked into wherever you walked into it? You know, that life, people like us, we can't even imagine what that was like.
It was terrific because I was welcomed everywhere. I mean, I was at home. People made me feel comfortable. They made me feel good. I mean, people on the street walking the street, the city of New York, or walking anywhere. Even Oakland fans cheered when we came out there to play those guys the next year. That's right, boy. We got a reception everywhere we went. Kansas City, the ballparks, the people in Boston.
Is it true that girls once left the side of Mick Jagger to come over and hang with Joe Namath? Look at me. Try to lie to my face and look at me and tell me that's not true.
No, but what I tell you, if I had to exchange places with somebody in life, I'd have to consider Mick, you know, and his style over the years.
Okay, but who are you hanging with back then? Come on.
Tom Jones was
Tom Jones, all right.
But Muhammad Ali was one of my favorite. Now you had that Muhammad I followed since his first bout with Sonny Liston. And when I had a place opening on 79th Street Causeway in Miami, walk into the place and there's just some media guys here, and sitting in the back of the room by himself was Muhammad. And I looked, and our eyes met, and he broke out with that grin of his. And man, I said, "Excuse me, fellas." I went back and sat down with him. And, "What are you doing, man?" "I just wanted to see what's going on with you, Joe." Just, you know, he just said that. It was so great. He's one of my favorite people of all time, or all of us, I guess.
But you're really two people that transcended your sport. I mean, Muhammad Ali for his own reasons, and you doing what you did with the Jets. Now, there's no way you can sit out of here with Joe Namath and not play the pantyhose commercial. and before we roll this, do you cringe when you see it? Do you laugh when you see it?
I learned to appreciate it. Let me put it that way. I really
did you
felt
hate it
awkward.
at some point?
Yes, I did when I first saw it. I didn't realize the guys that put it together were brilliant.
I mean, you're a big, tough, strong athlete.
But I have nice legs.
If you don't believe him, watch.
This commercial will prove to the women of America that Beauty Miss Pantyhose can make any legs look like $1 million.
Now, I don't wear pantyhose, but if Beauty Mist can make my legs look good, imagine what they'll do for yours.
Somehow, everything looks better through Beauty Mist.
Especially your legs.
I mean, that's awesome. That might be the best sports ad ever.
The product was great. But that's the only time I wore them.
Over the next 8 seasons, you're dealing with injury in and out. Remember, I mean, the team doctor said it'll give you 4 years at best on that knee. Can you put into words what it was like over that next 8-year stretch and how hard it was to climb onto that field?
Oh, yeah. It was hard. I mean, things happen to you. With, again, mentioned the navicular bones, torn ligaments in the shoulder, damaged nerve where you lose feeling in your foot for 4 years. It's just numb. All that was tough, but it wasn't life-threatening. None of them were life-threatening. That was the thing, the other thing. Always I knew and believed things could be worse. Things can be worse for us. And we can all be brought to our knees. I mentioned that, you know. So what I was going through, you know what? I just had to deal with it.
You know, in 1977, you end up out here with the Rams, and it ends shortly thereafter. How hard was it for you to walk away from the playing aspect?
Not hard at all, because I couldn't play.
You knew you were done. The gauge was on empty.
I played my last 4 years of professional football without being able to straighten this leg out and run. I just couldn't play anymore. And I knew I didn't belong anymore. So it's time comes. You know, as an athlete, you're going to stop playing and performing sometime. And I mean, maybe I should have before that.
To look back and think that this kid who told his dad that he was too nervous to play, and his dad said, well, then go take your uniform back, you need confidence, would end up in the NFL Hall of Fame in 1985. What was that stamp like for you?
It's a huge honor. It's as high honor as, depends on the individual. If someone were to say, you know, would you take a championship or, you know, the Hall of Fame, there are those of us and many other guys that say a championship first. I mean, because if we didn't win that championship, we wouldn't have got to that next level, of course, or the level of recognition. And again, it's a team sport, so you're recognized individually for having done well in a team sport. So you know darn well, if it wasn't for your guys that you were working with, man, you know that you wouldn't be there in the first place.
You won the one championship, but I know you're still on the short list when you talk to real football people and you say you had to win one game. One game you have to win. Who do you want at quarterback? And you're still on that list. I feel like you would put yourself on that list because of the confidence and because you would bet on yourself and those around you to get it done.
Well, there was a time, that I felt that I could outplay anybody. I felt like that I was the best at my position. There was a time that I said that, not bragging, but being asked directly what I thought about my ability as a quarterback. I felt good. I was quick. I was efficient. I knew how to call a game, and I just felt that confident about my abilities to play. I wasn't able to run the way I'd like to run, but hey, maybe if I ran more, I wouldn't have lasted as long as I did or wouldn't even got the chance to compete in a championship game. I don't know, but there was a time I felt like I could play as well as anybody and better than all of them at one time.
And finally, what's next for you and what you're doing with regard to head trauma and how you're trying to give back?
I didn't know anything about brain injuries, and then we started to hear about in sports, and I mentioned Dave Dorison early on, then Junior Seau, and guys that have suffered. A teammate of mine coached at our football camp every year, and he shared with myself and a couple of my teammates what he was going through from concussions. And I got to thinking about myself and, you know, getting hit and knowing I had some concussions. So I went and reached out to find out about myself. I took some tests, the cognitive tests. I took brain scans, and we saw where cells weren't working in my brain. They stopped getting a blood flow, and I began a process of hyperbaric oxygen treatment. And the FDA approved what happened to me with my brain and how it cleared up and everything. And they said, this is fine, but we want to see another 100 studies. We're trying to prove that there's a way to help, a process to help heal the brain once it's bruised and these cells stop getting blood flow. We can change the process.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
I think it's great.
It is.
Good for you. That's, we end this interview with fun questions. I hope you find them fun.
And if you have the answer, put your hand up.
No. You're the man in the hot seat. Would you rather go without the internet for a year or without your car?
You asking me?
Yeah. Who the hell else you think I'm asking?
You didn't tell me that this was going to be a part.
Would you rather go without the internet?
You don't have to repeat it. I would rather go without the internet for a year. I need my car.
Would you rather have one life that lasts 1,000 years or 10 lives that are 100 years each?
You know, not having experienced either, I don't know that I'm happy with this one.
Here's the last question. What makes a great quarterback?
You got to have some gifts. God-given gifts, genes, somehow. You can improve your speed, but you're just not born, I don't know, fast. A lot of things make a great quarterback. And again, it's usually great, that word. You got to have a team to be great.
Well, I have had the pleasure of sitting across from one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time great people, one of the all-time great quarterbacks, a Hall of Famer, Joe Namath.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Joe. This is very kind. Yes, very nice. Thank you.
The best.
Yeah,
Come on out.
Okay.